Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at Thermaltake's Toughpower GF3 1000w. Keep watching to find out more. So in today's video we're taking a look at the Thermaltake Toughpower GF3 1000w power supply. So for those of you who are not too sure, GF3 is basically the latest iteration of their specifications. So the GF1 was for ATX 2.4, this is now for ATX 3.0, which is now becoming an emerging standard, which a lot of manufacturers will be starting to pay more attention to in the coming weeks, months, years ahead. ATX 3.0 is here to stay whether or not we like it. And also PCIe5 5.0, which is, again, part of those emerging standards. Really wrapped up into ATX 3.0 are things like power efficiency, low vampire power, basically trying to eliminate wastage, so trying to make as an efficient a design as possible to help save the planet and also cost you less when it actually comes to paying your electricity bill, which is probably the best thing if you're looking at a power supply which is 1000 watts or building a system which may generate enough of a vacuum to actually use 1000 watts, which still seems quite insane, being that it was only 15-20 years ago that a 300 watt power supply was pretty much the norm and the standard. So things have certainly changed, and obviously Thermaltake, along with other manufacturers, had to jump on that bandwagon and change their specifications. So again, GF1 was the older version, ATX 2.4, still a very good power supply, but the GF3 is basically the cream of the crop. Another place where Thermaltake are basically putting their money where their mouth is, this actually comes with a 10-year warranty as well. So again, looking towards the future, this is somewhat of an investment. So 10 years time, if it fails for some reason, then obviously you're still going to be under warranty, which is absolutely excellent. I can't even remember 10 years ago. So yeah, for me, that is a heck of a long time. A 2-year warranty is great. 10-year warranty is absolutely amazing. And not many companies do it, and especially at a similar sort of price point. This, at the moment, in the UK, you can pick up for somewhere under £200, which for a 1000 watt ATX 3.0 power supply with PCIe Gen5 compatibility is pretty much unheard of. So anyway, let's come with it. So the rest of the specs on the box, obviously, PCIe Gen5, as we said, with a new 16-pin connector, ATX 3.0 compatible. We also got Smart Zero fan, and this is optional on this, as you would expect with a power supply costing a considerable amount of money. You have the option to have a quiet mode on the fan, so basically when it's under a very low wattage it will basically not spin at all, so absolutely silent. Obviously then when you're starting to draw a little bit more power, somewhere around 450 watts or so, then it will kick in and start spinning around about 600 RPM, but still being very quiet. When it gets to the top whack, if you're starting to draw 1000 watts, that's when the Toughpower fan is really going to kick in and do what it needs to. Now the actual fan they've used in here is 135mm, which is made by Hongwei, which is basically, a lot of the manufacturers do tend to use those. They are quality fans, and you quite often see them in Thermaltake models and also things like Silverstone and Seasonic. When it comes to the construction, so this is got 100% Japanese capacitors, which is always good to see, and also, like we said, 10-year warranty, which is awesome. On the side of the box, some more information about that 12 volt high power connection, and on the back it goes through some more of the specs and some of the key features, such as 80+ Gold certified efficiency, ultra quiet zero smart fan, as we've said. You've got low ripple, and also you've got your extreme strict voltage regulation. From what I can see from tests of this, outside of what Thermaltake have sent me as part of the kind of review package, is it does seem to be within 1% of the stated rating, so actually pretty strict in that regard. Also there you can see the output specifications, so they're not messing around. It does give out 1000 watts on that 12 volt rail, and then you've got about 120 over the 3.5 and 5 volt rails also. Also on the box it goes about the connector specifications, so I'll put those on the screen for you now so you can see that, but we'll go through that in more detail as we go through the unboxing, of which we are going to start straight away. So this comes through very nicely packaged, very well looked after, very thick styrofoam and all that kind of stuff. Inside, obviously, it's a power supply, so don't expect too much, but you do get some things such as, you get some cable ties for cable management, you obviously get screws to actually put it inside of your PC, you also get things like an instruction manual and warranty guidelines. There is also a lovely little package here, which is a Thermaltake box, or bag rather, I should say, with Velcro on the top there, so obviously this is a fully modular power supply, and it's unlikely you'll be using all of the cables. Obviously you can do if you want to, but any cables which you're not using, you can tuck back in your bag and keep them somewhere safe, which is awesome. Also included in here, you've obviously got a power cable. They've Default on this is a European one. Obviously, depending where you order it from, you'll get one suitable for your local region. And rest assured, it just uses the standard IEC type connection, so you don't need any fancy cables to actually get it running. So if you've got an IEC at home or one plumbed in somewhere, which you like to use, then you can just swap that straight over. Also, you get the power supply itself, as you'd expect, comes in a nice little protective coat there, or jacket, so yeah, that's pretty handy, keeps it all scratch free, etc. And we'll take a quick tour around here. So on the side, obviously you've got Toughpower GF3 1000w logo, ATX 3.0 power supply, you've got ventilation on the side. On the back, you've got a power switch, traditional rocker switch, and also you've got your smart fan switch as well, so you can turn that on or off. It's kind of confusing what it is, but basically smart fan on, it does tell you on the label there exactly what it does. So when you've got smart fan on, don't expect to see the fan spinning if you're doing some testing or it's under very low loads. If you've got it turned off, then you should expect to see it spin from the moment you turn it on effectively. But again, it is temperature regulated and it looks at what watches are being going through there. If it doesn't need to spin particularly fast, it won't do. And you may find even with smart fan mode turned off, it may still not spin. So don't panic if that happens. And obviously do pay attention to the label on the side there. You can pull the label off and then you can plug in your kettle lead there or your IEC lead. No problems there. Lots of ventilation in Thermaltake's very common design now, like Darth Vader's bathroom. I like that a lot. Very good for ventilation. And on the other side, you've got the same thing as well with the logo on upside down. So if you're mounting this, obviously, whichever way, it's going to work out one way or the other if you have it fan up or fan down and you want to show off your label on the side, which I'm sure you'll want to, seeing you've spent so much money on it. On the other side, you've got the Toughpower GF3 1000w logo, and also you've got all the voltages, etc. on there, and obviously your serial number for registering your warranty, which I suggest you do straight away when you receive your product. On the top, we've got our fan section, which again, Darth Vader's bathroom looking here, 135mm fan made by Hongwao, which, like I said before, is a fluid dynamic bearing, very high quality, as used with Silverstone, Seasonic, etc, etc. So yeah, it's a very good quality fan. Moves a ton of air, which is excellent because this actually will put out up to 1000 watts and still maintain a temperature of around about 47 degrees Celsius under testing conditions, which is yeah, pretty darn good. And all the capacitors, like I said earlier, are Japanese and rated to 105C. On the back, the important bit, so this is our connectivity, and as you can see already, this is fully modular, as again you'd kind of expect for this kind of level of power supply. So we'll start at the top. So we've got our 12V HP power, so this is for your graphics cards, the new 600 watt standard for those guzzling graphics cards, which I'm not sure if this is going to be a permanent thing, but it seems to be something which is coming out eventually. Graphics cards will be adopting it, it appears, but some, obviously from AMD at the moment, with the 7000 series just relaunching, don't actually use those, so don't worry, it's absolutely fine, because next to that you've got your standard CPU PCI Express connections. So like I said earlier, this is kind of future-proofing, so as things do move over to the 12V high power connection, you've got it there ready and waiting, which a lot of power supplies, especially around the 1000W at the moment, don't adhere to this standard. So if you do want to take advantage of that connection, not have to worry about all these different adapters to try and adapt to your graphics card, this is a native 12V HP power, which is going to be basically the way things are going forward. Anyway, so we've got one of those. You've also got 4 CPU or PCIe Express type connections there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you've also got your 24-pin ATX, which goes into the bottom ones there, and you've got 4 peripheral connections there. So that's going to be for your SATA, your Molex connections, all that kind of good stuff. So plenty of options there. They do come included as well in the packaging with 2 PCI Express type cables, which you can hook up to a graphics card. Each one of those has got 2 connections on. And when it comes to the CPU side of things, you've got 2 CPU EPS connectors as well. So if you're using a motherboard which does require 2 lots of 8-pin connectors, then no worries, got you covered straight away out of the box. So with that said, let's take a look at the cabling and we'll go through some of the options you've got here. So we'll start off with the key one, which is obviously going to be your 12V high power connector for the graphics cards. So these are rated to 600 watts. These are very clever. They have sense pins in. Essentially, depending on what that pin connects to on the graphics card, will tell the power supply basically what it's connected to, and it will smartly allocate power to it as needed. So if it's a 450 watt graphics card, or it's only got the 1 sense pin, it'll do that. If it's got 2 sense pins, etc, etc. You get the general idea. It's basically a clever way of the power supply knowing what is actually connected to it, so it doesn't do over voltage, under voltage, and all that kind of good stuff. The connection itself, they've actually done quite a good job here. So they've actually extended the cables a little bit past where this little bit of flexes, so if you do want to bend them over, they are quite stiff, but they will bend a little bit. So if you're putting this in a PC case, obviously, which you're going to, if you need to bend over a little bit, you can do without causing too much stress to the cabling, which is good to see. For those of you wondering, this one is 600mm long. So yeah, nice and long, should reach to pretty much most units, depending obviously on the case you're putting it into. But yeah, nice to see that. You can obviously, if you want to, get replacements or additional ones of those if anything should happen to it. And again, it is going to be covered as part of your 10-year warranty. That covers the power supply and also obviously the cables as well. So let's go through the rest of the cables. There's a lot here to go through. So the next one is going to be our accessories. So this is your Molex connection, 4-pin Molex. Goes to a 6-pin which plugs into the back of the power supply. On this you have got 4 connections, so you can connect up 4 Molex style devices on there. And again, the lengths will be at the bottom of the screen there for you to see. You also do get an adapter as well, so this goes from Molex to floppy style. Now this is going to be useful for things like certain USB add-on cards, that kind of thing, fan controllers. And in fact, Thermaltake's own fan controllers do use that type of connection to power them, so you can power it straight off there if you maybe lose your connection, etc. That's handy to have. Next up, we've got our PCI Express cables. So these are your 6+2s or 8-pin. Each cable has 2 of those on, so you can daisy chain them. Obviously, high-end graphics cards, you probably don't want to do that. So obviously, yeah, your mileage may vary what you can use these with. Some people prefer with lower-end cards if they need to just to use 1 cable. But don't worry, you have got 2 cables. So a total amount of 4 PCI Express connections off of 2 cables. So handy to have those. You've also got your SATA cables, and each one of these SATA cables has 4 SATA connections on, so up to 12 devices can be done from that. Again, the dimensions and lengths will be at the bottom of the screen. We've also got our EPS connections. This is for your CPU, so they've actually done 2 types of cable in here. There are the 8-pin, which is the solid 8-pin, which you generally tend to use, and also if you've got a motherboard which needs a 4-pin and 8-pin, then you do have an additional 2x4, which snaps together to make you 8, so you can use that in its snap together version, or you can use it on its own, however you want to do. I like the fact they've got the little clips on there to snap it together, because those can be quite fiddly and tricky to mess around with. So yeah, very handy. And again, you've got 2 EPS cables should you need to use them. Last one is going to be the actual 24-pin motherboard connection. Again, this, I'm not sure why, but they've actually got a split on here as well, so you can use it for a 20-pin connection on a motherboard, which I don't think even exists anymore, but maybe if you've got a very old motherboard and it needs a lot of power, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, anyway, that connects up to the 2 connections on the end, goes into the power supply. Job done. So that is it. That is all your cables. That is everything you get. There's a lot of cables here. It's unlikely you're going to need anything else, or alternatively, if you want to do a little bit more custom, then obviously, because this is fully modular, you can get custom cables made up, or sleeve cables, all that kind of stuff. Potentially, you might even want to change this out at some point for a custom sleeve version. Again, that is going to be down to you, and obviously depending on what happens in the future with those types of cables. But overall, an excellent power supply, covers pretty much all the bases you could want from an ATX 3.0 PCI Express Gen 5 power supply. You've got all the usual stuff in there, so you've got over current protection, over power protection, over temperature protection. Yeah, basically it covers pretty much every single base possible. And obviously, like I said, everything is backed up with a 10-year warranty. So most manufacturers, if they've got any sense, they're not going to put a very high and very long warranty on a product if they've skimped anywhere at all, which obviously in this they haven't. And actually, if you want to see some more thorough reviews of this, where they've gone into great depth and connected up to a proper PSU tester to get all the results, and I'll put a couple of links for those in the video description. Hardware Buster's done a fantastic one, TechSpot also, and basically it comes away with them saying yes, it is an excellent power supply and the pros far outweigh the cons. Excellent voltage control, ripple control, all that kind of stuff. The only thing which does stand out as being something which is not as good as some of the others is the fact that the fan does ramp up a little bit when it's under maximum load, but that is part and parcel. Obviously, if you want to keep it nice and cool and keep everything regulated and under control, you do have to get some airflow going through there because of the way it is. Now, this does have excellent inrush current protection as well, which actually in testing is some of the best in class compared with things like Corsair's RM1000s, which again is an excellent power supply, but doesn't have the 12-volt high power connection on it. So good power supply, but still it isn't ATX 3.0 compatible, whereas this is straight out of the box. So there you go, that has been Thermaltake's Toughpower GF3 1000w. I've been Mike, this is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.